Welcome to Legends to Leaders. Today, we're honored to introduce Sheila Grumbach. Sheila is a CNOR certified perioperative executive with 20 years of experience in surgical services leadership across the country, from OSF Healthcare in Illinois to a 3-year stint in California with Alameda, also Academic Medical Center at UCSF in San Francisco area. Along the way, Sheila has built her own consulting practice, Diamond Healthcare Consulting, where she spent a decade helping healthcare systems tackle their most difficult challenges, including survey readiness, which is today's topic. Sheila, welcome to Legends to Leaders.
Thank you. Good to be here this morning, Josiah.
Well, let's start here. Can you tell me a little bit about where you've worked and some of the most interesting survey readiness projects from your background?
Let me kind of start from the beginning. My operating room rotation during nursing school sparked a very strong interest in perioperative nursing. And recognizing this passion, I planned to first gain experience in medical surgical nursing upon graduation before pursuing an operating room clinical track. So after completing my nursing degree and beginning my military obligation as an Army nurse, I worked on a medical surgical unit. And this foundational experience preceded my attendance of the Army Medical Department perioperative nursing program. And that is where my perioperative journey began and has continued. Throughout my career, I've served a variety of leadership and educational roles, including instructor for operating room technicians, perioperative educator, head nurse, perioperative director, nursing director of an ambulatory clinics, and chief nursing officer at a community-based hospital. My experience extends across a range of healthcare facilities, as you mentioned, like a level 1 trauma center and a Joint Air Force VA ambulatory surgery center. My background also includes working at AORN headquarters and, as you said, most recently, a level 1 pediatric research and teaching hospital. I spent approximately 5 years at AORN headquarters as a perioperative nursing specialist. And during this time, I was involved in developing guidelines and participating in nurse consultation line. And additionally, I served in the program's technical advisory committee with the Joint Commission, facilitating collaboration between AORN guidelines and the Joint Commission survey. And so the majority of my career, we have to do and have to address the accreditation and the readiness. And so it's been an integral part of my background.
That's a great start. Thank you so much. So here's something I hear frequently, and I think it's on the mind. How do you recommend a culture of always ready, always survey ready, instead of a hurry up and scramble?
That is what is essential. What we have to do is first know the national patient safety goals, review and update policy, conduct environment of care rounds collaboratively with the team, and then have some regulatory interdisciplinary teams. But what we have to believe in is that we are ready for the patient. If we are ready for each and every patient, each and every day, then we will be practicing what the accreditation and regulatory and guidelines and policies say that we should be doing, we should be practicing. So knowing those things and incorporating that in our practice, being ready for the patient each and every day, we are constantly maintaining our readiness for the survey by upholding those standards and those practices.
Sounds like be ready for the patient is a mantra.
And you will be ready, and you will be ready. There will be no scrambling. You'll be ready. You just have to tweak maybe 1 or 2 things, but you will be ready.
What are the top 2 or 3 things that seem to be highly important in terms of surveyors right now in 2026, 2027?
It's really 2 things that I've seen over this past year. High-level disinfection, number 1. What scopes do you use in every setting, whether it's the clinic setting or in the operating room? What ultrasound, what probe do you use, and how do you treat it once the procedure is over? Is it ready, and does it meet the infection prevention standards? So knowing each and every one of those, every nook and cranny, knowing where those probes are and how they're reprocessed. And then the second one is a very simple one, and people don't really think that it's all that important, but it's infection prevention also, and it's surgical attire. A lot of people really don't think that that's important, but when you have that in the guidelines, AORN guidelines, our CDC guidelines, our infection prevention, our APIC guidelines, it says how we wear our attire, how we treat our attire is important in maintaining and preventing surgical site infection. And when we have the prevalence of not wearing our attire appropriately, then you score very low on that. You're not meeting that compliance when there's that greater prevalence in there. And it's the simple things, very easy, low-hanging fruit, not wearing your mask, dangling around your neck, not walking outside or wearing your scrubs from outside of the facility, is setting up the patient for the best outcome and not exposing them to undue exposure to transmission-based effects of transmission-based protocols. So the Joint Commission heavily looked at part of our system. They came in and saw that there was that misappropriation, not misappropriation, but non-compliance, non-compliance of attire and beards not being covered, hand hygiene, just those types of things. Very simple, easy to fix, change the culture, hold each other accountable, and understand why it is necessary to be compliant in those areas. Those top two things, high-level disinfection and perioperative attire.
That's great. So what I think I understand is that it's some of the same basics that have been important: high-level disinfection, surgical attire, and hand hygiene. There's nothing per se new about them. It's just a importance of the basics.
Absolutely.
So imagine a newly promoted director has stepped into a environment in which the facility may not be survey ready. Where should they start first? In other words, is there a known checklist that you would have that person be thinking through?
Absolutely. The Joint Commission has published, newly published some checklists for survey readiness. They're very simple, but relying on regulatory, they will usually have some environment of care checklists that are available. So what I would recommend to a new director, number one, is review your policy. How long ago has it been revised? And open up the AORN guidelines and work with regulatory to see the newest requirements for the Joint Commission and the newest national patient safety goals, where you sit in there, and then look at the last survey, the SAFER matrix, or SAFEST as they call it now, matrix from the last survey. Start from there. What do you need to fix? What is still open and in need of attention? So start with just those. Number one, see where you stand. Basically do a gap analysis of where you stand, and then go from there.
Great. That's great. Can you share a time in which you or your team had a challenging survey and what you learned from it?
At one of the facilities, perioperative services included sterile processing, but sterile processing really didn't have direct influence over the outlying clinics. And we had a mock surveyor come in and indicate what the vulnerabilities were, the huge gaps were. And so that was a great opportunity then that we were allowed for perioperative services to come in and provide them some guidance on what they needed to do, the rationale of why they had to do, and help them align to what was necessary. And we were able to get that up and running just in time for the survey that came in. And so I think it was a great learning experience for the manager of sterile processing to understand that my scope really should be anything that is processed, how it is stored, how it is reprocessed, and the manufacturer's instructions for use, and the staff being able to understand those things. And so you really, that collaboration is needed, even though you may just have a dotted line oversight of it, is being there and knowing and helping out where that was. And as a matter of fact, one of our interims for sterile processing leadership came in right in time for that and was able to get them on time, because the mock survey said we weren't ready as a part of the system,
Yeah.
but we were able to get ready just in time for the survey.
What I think I'm hearing is that we're seeing the elevation of sterile processing into the high priority of the perioperative director, dotted line, or even a direct line into it. Are we seeing a continued growth in sterile processing? Do you think that there'll be more seats at the table for sterile processing and leadership in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. That you have such experienced leaders that, in my experience, that are over sterile processing. And I have worked with an individual that was new to the role, but as a manager, but he reported up to someone that had a lot of experience. And so when Joint Commission came in, they were very much impressed with the confidence that the leadership as well as the staff had for that. So it works best when you're very collaborative and you understand each other's roles and importance in your operations, because sterile processing, it starts there. It really does start there for our prevention of surgical site infection, how they're doing, our readiness to begin the day. And so good leadership is really essential, and they are an integral part of that team, that perioperative team. Regardless of the structure that a hospital has, it has to be very collaborative.
So you had mentioned some examples of structure, or at least that's what I want to explore a little bit. How do you hold or keep your management team accountable all year round to survey readiness?
Well, what they first have to understand is the more that you involve the staff in this, that you want them to be able to understand what they do, why they do it. And so that whether you're there or not, they know what they should be doing. And it's not just the manager, the leaders have to be there, obviously, to know it, but they have to instill the competency and the confidence in their staff to be able to do it. So involve them in the processes of what goes on. And we had to develop, and most of the places I go, we develop what was called downtime activities or checklist. Okay, so with the downtime checklist, instead of everybody being in the break room, you break it up, you assign them to a particular room, and here's the checklist of things that you need to look through. And that includes environmental services, EVS. They have their list too. Here's what we need to look for fire life safety and infection prevention, our materials people, things on the shelves, getting them dusted out. So every person has a portion of that. So the managers start out with that checklist, and then how we're going to do that. So holding really regular surveys that you walk through and making it fun for the staff. We even did a contest one time, which was using our technology, our phones, and we did a scavenger hunt, joint commission scavenger hunt. And so everybody had to go around and send a picture of where they were compliant. So take in and send a picture of a life safety compliant hallway. So I get a picture and everything is lined up on one side of the hallway and nothing is blocking the fire exits. So everybody would do that. And we had winners, the most number of check marks. And then of course they would help each other, which was okay, because that was the whole point, is you develop that teamwork among each other. And it was amazing at how well the hallways started looking about that. And the same thing, we had some people who had worked there for a few years and didn't know what a malignant hypothermia cart was. And so those are the type of team building things that they could do, as well as increasing their knowledge about where things were.
That's great. The gamification means that just because it's important, just because it is dry, doesn't mean that it needs to be unfun, right? That you
That's
can have a
correct.
joke of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Terrific. Terrific. Let's see, looking ahead, what changes or trends do you think perioperative leaders should be preparing for when it comes to regulatory surveys? And I'm, of course, referring to AI.
Yeah, AI is there. We have to first and foremost just make sure that we maintain HIPAA with that. And so stay within the boundaries of what is approved and vetted through our IT, and that's about it. So we want to make sure that we don't exceed what has been approved. Oftentimes, what the directors have to do when they're doing their capital budget is they have to vet through IT the systems and how well that they could collaborate and integrate with the hospital system, but also making sure that if it is going to access patient data, that it maintains that health protected health information as it's supposed to. Now, trends and changes. Right now, we're actually, this is prime time. There's something new with the Joint Commission called Accreditation 360. So it switches gears just a little bit, where it focuses on frontline staff participation and outcome-based expectations. So they'll do the tracers, but they don't want to talk to the leaders. They want the frontline staff to be involved in the discussions, which of course they wanted before, but what the leader has to do is train the teams to speak confidently about their recent incidents and improvements or action plans. We know we're not perfect, but as a result of something, what did we do? What are our lessons learned? And also with our policy, not knowing not only where it is, but why. So again, that's that rationale, not just, it's great that they can point us to where the policies are. And we can't forget that we're on the internet because most of everything is based off the internet because it's updated and most current there in our intranet most of the time. But why do we do policies a particular way? And so as we update our policies, what's the rationale behind that? So the Joint Commission is doing that accreditation 360. So know about that, and as well as the checklist. And there's a new trend where some of the national patient safety goals have been downsized. They're not eliminated. They're just more functional in the way that they look to score those.
Got it. So before we wrap up, do you have any other advice for a newly promoted director of surgical services who may be overwhelmed as it comes to their survey?
Yes. First of all, they have to know that they're not alone. And there are many people that can help them bear that weight of it is a lot in their new position, but they also need to allow themselves grace and time to learn. And so as a new leader, they're going to have to do some homework to understand and what their policy is, what their accreditation, whether it's the Joint Commission or an outpatient surgery accreditation. But look to see what that is first in writing, and then observe what your practices are. Where is there a gap? And don't think you have to do this on your own. It's time to start delegating and involving your formal and informal leaders to be a part of the process of preparing the staff for what needs to do. And another part of that is get engaged with your business partners and staff involved in this as soon as possible. So our anesthesia department, our surgeon leaders, make sure they're involved in what's going on and a part of your journey, because number one, there may be resources and some very good ones that can help you along with that. And so don't be intimidated by what you don't know. Ask questions and be curious. So don't be afraid to feel like you don't know everything, because you don't. But you have to be open to getting that information. And then follow up what you don't understand and tap into the available resources. Schedule one-on-ones with regulatory and infection prevention to help you understand what is needed of your area. They are great resources in my experience. And number one, as you said, as we mentioned before, is where do we have gaps on the last? So what do we need to focus on that we can do right away? And as you are developing your knowledge, register for readiness webinars, roundtables, and leadership briefings. So be understudy, be open to that and not intimidated by what you don't know, and you will incrementally get to where you need to be.
Sheila, that's terrific. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. To our listeners, here is some of the things that I heard that I enjoyed the most. I enjoyed the true north, which is be ready for the patient. We heard about 3 things that are kind of back to the basics, but are the 3 things, including high-level disinfection, surgical attire, and hand hygiene, that are important, as always, to the surveyors. And then we learned about a downtime checklist, which is one of those sort of fun areas of survey readiness, or more specifically, the gamification of having a scavenger hunt, and that was a fun idea. So don't forget the fun. Sheila, thank you so much for sharing your insights on Joint Commission readiness and survey readiness. You've been a great mentor both at AORN and also in your leadership practice for the next generation of leaders. Until next time, this has been Legends to Leaders.